Probably the biggest thing was the raving fans. Everybody's like, man, you guys have to run this back. This was a networking event. This was a chamber of commerce on crack. Like, you guys got to run this back. And so we kind of started internalizing that and like, maybe we have to run. I mean, it was a success last year. What could go wrong this year?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of My Biggest Marketing Mistake, the podcast that transforms costly failures into priceless insights. I'm your host, Kacy Maxwell, and I think you're really going to enjoy today's story because, honestly, it covers one of the main reasons why I did a podcast on marketing failures and not marketing successes. Because often successes come with blinders, and those blinders can have big consequences if you're not careful. More on that in a minute. So our quote on failure today comes from Shane Parrish of Farnham Street. Now, I've been following this group for a long time, and they put out so much good content. They focus on two things that are near and dear to my heart, and that is decision-making and frameworks. And in a recent email, Shane said, "The successful learn vicariously. The foolish insist on firsthand pain." Or said a little differently, some people just have to learn the hard way. But that's what's so great about the stories on this podcast. You don't have to learn the hard way. The CEOs that come on here and share have already done that. They've already touched the stove and burned their hand, and now you don't have to know if it's hot. Which brings us to our failure story for today. So I mentioned at the top of the podcast that this story is one of the reasons that I'm doing this podcast about failure in the first place. And it's because it's one that starts with an amazing marketing success that ultimately leads to an even bigger marketing failure. But how does something like that happen? Well, it honestly happens a lot more than you might think. Think about one of your biggest marketing successes. You created a campaign or an event or something that just blew your goals out of the water. How likely were you to do that same campaign the next year? It's almost a guarantee because success puts blinders on. And we often don't unpack why it worked like we would if it would have failed, right? We think, well, we came up with the idea and we thought it would work, and then we implemented it and it worked, so it must always work. But we don't ask ourselves the critical questions of what were the factors that were in place that led to its success? And better yet, has anything changed so that it might not work again? And today's story deals with that exact challenge. So today I sit down with Jonathan Fisher, CEO and co-founder of Bevanda. So Bevanda started as a drinkware and cooler brand for the promotional market, but they've been recently looking to expand in the consumer space. And under Jonathan's leadership, this company has seen year after year growth of 30% or more, which is no small feat because that's a highly competitive market. But for all of Jonathan's successes, he recently faced a major setback on something that was, quote, guaranteed to work. So today, Jonathan's story will help us understand how not to give into confirmation bias, the hidden pitfalls of misaligned positioning and how to course correct, and how important it is to make sure that your marketing and your product is aligned and how to change it if it's not. So Jonathan's story will encourage you to look a little harder at your successes and hopefully stop you from making the same mistake that he did. And we'll dig into it right after this.
You want to grow, and you need a marketing partner to help accelerate the process. At Provisions Group, we take a comprehensive approach to marketing and technology to maximize impact and growth. We work alongside you to build and implement a customized marketing plan, and we help you optimize your tech stack so you can operate efficiently and securely. Plus, our tenured fractional advisors are here to partner with you to keep your objectives aligned and create a roadmap to success.
All right, welcome to the podcast, Jonathan. I'm so excited to talk about your story here today because there's an interesting thing that happened as we talked through this story and what happened, right? So it's not just a marketing failure; it's a marketing failure that came after a marketing win, right? And so tell me, before we jump in, start talking about all the things, tell me a little bit about Bevanda. Just what products, services do you offer?
Sure. Bavanda is a 7-year-old company. We started in 2017, and we started with a product, 20-ounce coffee tumblers, 25-ounce water bottles, developed some of our own products. And the goal has always been to be a direct-to-consumer brand, but all of our products that we do, the coolers, lunch boxes, the drinkware, is we do promotional printing. So we've kind of become a promotional company by accident. So that's kind of the 30,000-foot view of who Bevanda is.
That's great. So you start with these tumblers, you start with these branded products, and as you're trying to figure out how do I get in front of my target customer, you made the decision to throw an in-person event. So I want to talk a little bit about that event because I honestly love in-person events. I feel like since 2020 and COVID happened, we've run into everything being digital, and webinars and marketing automation, all that stuff, all of it is sort of digital only. And that's great, but there's something unique and interesting about an in-person event that connects you with your customers in a way that other marketing doesn't. So how did you land on the decision to make this an in-person event?
We were 6 years in our business, and we did the data and identified that 95% of our customers are B2B. And so how do we get in front of the decision makers? How do we get in front of HR managers, the CEOs? And some of these smaller companies are, the owner operator makes these decisions. And so every year since we started Bavanda, we did a open house here at our facility. So we just invite local business owners, advertise for it, and offer free food, that type of thing. But what we've seen is a decline in attendance because everybody's busy. For them to come to us for a little bit of free food to kind of see what we're about, it's cool at first because it's your friends, it's people that know you. Hey, let's go check out, see what they're about. But we just seen a decline in attendance, and our sales starting to decline. We have these brainstorming meetings, which I'm a fan of in our company, and we just began to identify and pick apart of how can we get more of the decision makers in the room. If we can impact them, they can see who we are as a company. We have a good product, they'll more than likely buy. So we sat down and had this wild idea. What would it look like if we do a one day event instead of the open house? Let's take it off site, kind of like a mini conference. Let's invite a good speaker. So that's going to be your bait for people to come and sign up. And we started crunching the numbers, and we said, what would it look like if we do this free of charge by invitation only? And it exploded.
So I love that. There's so many good things that you did in that process. The first thing, you reviewed your current marketing tactic of open house, right? And all the things we're talking about right now, in the marketing terms, it's called a lead magnet, right? You're trying to offer something of value so that someone says, hey, I want to come and be a part of that. And then your brand is around it, right? You get to be around your brand. And so the first offer was free food, right? Hey, I'm going to offer you free food and just a chance to have maybe some drinks, and you get to be around the product. And you found that year after year, that was being less and less effective, right? And so that's a great cue. And I want to talk about this later as well. That's a great cue to always reassess your marketing based on doing the same thing over and over and over and starting to see diminishing returns, right? And so you sat down and you asked the perfect question, and I want to hone in on that. You said, what would be valuable for our customers? So you throw this conference, you have a famous speaker come in, and it worked. Tell us a little bit about how it worked for your organization.
As far as the decision-making process to spend that type of money to bring a speaker in, free food, really deck out the branding side of it. I'm networked in my Lancaster area, know a lot of CEOs, and I just got on the phone with these guys and I said, hey, I got this wild idea. Would you come to this event? We bring a speaker in. It's going to take about 6 hours of your day. You get to be around 300 other business owners. Would you come? And I didn't even get to 10 of them. I was in maybe 6, and I said, absolutely, I'd come to that. And so we rolled with the punches, a lot of fear going into that. We spending a lot of money on this event. And we decided to give it a shot.
Well, and that's great. You did customer research, right? You went and asked people, if we did this thing, would you come? That is something that you should, anytime you're gonna roll the dice on something, if you can get in front of your customers, ask them if they'd attend that. Like if you're going to do a webinar on X, Y, and Z, reach out to 10 of your top customers and say, hey, we're going to do this webinar. Would you come to it? Like, is this something that you find value in? Because you're going to find either what you found pretty quickly of, oh man, that's a great idea. I would love to come. Are all of them going to come? No, probably not, right? But you're going to get that signal of, yeah, this is actually a good idea. Or you're going to get the, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great, and you kind of get enough of those and you're like, I don't think this is going to work like we think. Because it's easy whenever you come up with an idea to get the bias of, this is a good idea. It's definitely going to work, right? And then you get around a bunch of people on your team, especially if you're in leadership, and you're like, here's my idea. We should do this, right? And everyone's like, yes, this is a great idea. And you get this sort of group think going on, and you make a big marketing decision to invest because you and a bunch of your team thought it was a good idea. But on this first event, you reached out to the customers and you validated that idea. And so tell me a little bit about the results. Did anyone show up? Did you make any money?
So we had seats for 320 people, and we packed the room. I think we had a couple cancellations, but we had about 310 people showed up. And it was awesome. I mean, Will Guidara's message of unreasonable hospitality was so fitting because this was the first event that we were doing. We're not trying to start a conference. We're just trying to market our product and our brand. And so we've implemented all those things, those small touch points that people don't even realize. And people were blown away. The brand play of that was unbelievable. Rant and raving. And then Will's keynote, it was awesome. He had a Q&A at the end. And we were expecting, we had our product displayed the day of, and what we were expecting people to buy because we advertised this is who we are. Let me back up a little bit. We went back and forth. Do we charge for the event? Do we do it free of charge? And it was free of charge, invitation only. And so we didn't realize this at the time, but it kind of created an obligation for people to buy. And not even necessarily an obligation, but man, I want to do business with those guys. They put on a lot of money for this event. Like, let's do business with that. And so we pulled off the event in early June. By the end of the year, which Bevanda historically does 65% of our sales in Q4. I mean, we blew our numbers out of the water, and we specifically traced it to that event. And it was like, oh man, it was a success. And not just from the number standpoint, but from a brand play, from getting people, like, there's a lot of people that were like, man, why didn't I get an invitation to that event? So it was from every angle, it was a success.
And you keep saying everything right. I'm like, we're going to get to a failure, right? And we will. But you said something around the idea of the obligation, right? You gave something away so good for free that there was this obligation. I don't think it's nefarious, or I know there are shady sales tactics where people that send I get still paper mailings to do surveys, and it has $5 in it, and you kind of feel obligated. You're like, well, they gave me $5. I guess I'll do this survey, right? Or, hey, a sales guy's like, hey, jump on a call with me and I'll give you a pair of AirPods. And so then you get on this call and there's this sort of weird dynamic and like, well, you gave me a gift and should I buy it? There's a wrong way to do that. And then there's a right way to do that where you give something so valuable to someone that, yes, they kind of feel obligated, but they also feel like, wow, I would want to do business with somebody that is going to do this. Because if they put this much time and energy into a free product that they're giving me, I can only imagine how much time and energy they've put into the products and services that they're going to be selling. And that's where a lot of these lead magnets fall short because you're trying to get out, marketing teams are trying to get out these lead magnets fast, right? And they're like, oh, I just want to get something out. And so you put this PDF together and put it out there and people download it and you make this huge promise. We're going to change your entire marketing world, right? Download this packet. And then you download it and it's like 12 pages of fluff that you skim and you're like, well, that wasn't great. And I'll tell you what, I've never worked with a company that I've downloaded their lead magnet and it was terrible, right? I've never gone and worked with a company that I went to a webinar that was terrible because I'm like, if this is what you're putting out, I can only imagine what you're going to, the services that you're going to provide. So this first event, great example of a bunch of things that you did right. However, the calendar turns, it's the next year, right? And so coming off the success of this first one-day event, you make the decision, let's do it again, right?
It took us a few months to kind of dissect the event in 2023 and kind of what went right and how did it work. But I think the biggest thing that we decided to run it back was two things, is the raving fans and the people talking about the event, and then the numbers. And that was probably the biggest thing was the raving fans. Everybody's like, man, you guys have to run this back. This was a networking event. This was a chamber of commerce on crack. Like, you guys got to run this back. And so we kind of started internalizing that and like, yeah, maybe we have to run. I mean, it was a success last year. What could go wrong this year? And so, I mean, right out of the gate, all the teams on board. It was fun to pull off. And so naturally, we're thinking, let's go bigger. Let's do it better. How can we do it bigger? How can we do it better?
There are so many biases that come into play when you do something that was successful. And the decision of should we do it or should we not do it again, that's usually an easy one. You're like, we did it last year. We made X amount of dollars. That was a huge win. Why wouldn't we do it again? And a lot of times we don't spend the time to ask the questions of why shouldn't we do it again, right? We're like, it's kind of a no-brainer. The amount of times I've heard that even on this podcast, like, it was a no-brainer. And you're like, well, maybe we should have taken a little bit of a pause to kind of ask what had changed. So talk a little bit about the second year. So year two, kind of go with the same format, right? So you get a different speaker, get the word out, and you said you want to go bigger and better. Tell us a little bit about that event and the results that happened.
We changed the format of the event. It was on an afternoon/evening because I think the piece of value that we wanted to provide for people, what they were raving about, was the networking piece. So we really tried to create an atmosphere where people can network. A lot of these events are presentation heavy. So we're like, we don't want that. Let's just bring a speaker in. And we brought Dr. John Deloney in. So we use that as marketing leverage to bring people in. And what we didn't realize, and you alluded to it, Kacy, is that we didn't once sit down and ask ourselves, why shouldn't we do this event? The 2023 event that we did, we had a customer contact list, existing customers and prospects. And so in 2023, we hit that list. So we had 310 people show up in 2023, bigger event venue, room for 420. And so we had that existing contact list, that existing prospect list, and it hadn't grown that much in that year. So that's the question we didn't ask ourselves. Like, who's coming to this event? Who bought last year? We're like, it was so good. Everybody would tell their friends about the event. Well, that didn't happen. Now, it did to a certain degree, a percentage, but a lot of the people that were at 2023's event and that have bought from us or purchased from us in 2022 or 2021 showed up again. And so that was a mistake. And we never saw it coming.
Yeah. So you have a bigger, better event. You have relatively the same audience show up again, which is also something that you need to think about. Like, if you do something that is so good, if you do it again, they're going to want to come to the next one and come to the next one and come to the next one, which that's good. I mean, that's like, regardless, even though it didn't end up in sales, there is some positive, right? Like, you got in front of your customers again. There's the potential that this is going to have positive impact in your business, but it didn't have the type of material impact today. Like, it probably had a positive brand impact, but it actually hurt your bottom line. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, because it gets into a different area of the business. So same people come. Talk about your product mix. Did your product mix change year over year? Was it the same? Talk a little bit about that.
That's one of the problems as well. So we have 3 different product lines. They're very simple. It's the water bottles, the 20-ounce coffee tumblers, and then we have a 5-gallon and a 3-gallon beverage dispenser, and then a lunchbox, a 20-quart and a 10-quart lunchbox. So very, very simple line of products. The thing that correlates all 3 of them is the promotional printing. So we've had people that have bought from us since 2017. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 customers that bought from us every single year. Probably average is repeat customers is maybe 3. And that's what we have, 3 different product lines. So if you're going to buy a 5-gallon beverage dispenser the one year, you're not going to turn around and go buy the 3-gallon the following year. It's the same product, just different size. We never did that research. We've never done that data. And so at the event, we've had a ton of people come up to us and saying, man, what a great event, but you guys got to do something different. Like, it's such a good event, but I don't see this as a positive impact to your bottom line. Like, either 2 things you got to do. You either got to charge for this event, or you got to be a promotional company, because you stood on stage, and I said, hey, I'm Jonathan of Bevanda. If you have employee Christmas needs, client Christmas needs, contact us. And we had like 10 different people said, I contacted you. You guys don't have any new product. Like, I have a problem, but you guys can't solve it. And so it was just, what do you do with that information?
Yeah. It's interesting. You have a unique problem in that you've created this top of the funnel, you've created this demand, and don't actually have the right product mix to fulfill that demand, right? Usually marketers have the opposite issue, right? Of, man, we've got all these products and services, and I can't find the demand. And so you invited all these people back, you created an awesome event, you created value, you created awesome brand association, you got a lot of people to come, right? And you got people asking, hey, I want to buy your product. Tell me what products you have. But you didn't have the product there to deliver. And that's why, like, I wanted to highlight this point, because I think there's often a disconnect between marketing and the product itself and what the product can deliver. So you have a set of products, right? You have specific products that people can buy. A lot of companies have one product, right? A service or an offering, and they just kind of divorce marketing and product from it and say, marketing, go sell. Go sell, go get people in. And so marketing goes out and makes these wild claims, right? Or creates awesome events, or creates all of these amazing experiences. And then when you get people into your funnel, so you got 410 people into your funnel that night, right? Mm-hmm. But then you didn't have anywhere to funnel them. And so the disconnect of like, how do we design products for our customers and make sure that what we're marketing and how we're positioning ourselves, I want to talk about that as well. Like, you got on stage and positioned yourself as a promotional branding company, right?
Yep.
The problem is that you had 3 set product lines that's not what a promotional company does, right? Like, a promotional company has thousands of new products, and every year they've got a new product. Or here's the Owala water bottle, or here's this one. This is the new, and they get it, and then they put the brand in. So their focus is, how do I get a wide breadth of products so I can slap my logo on it, right? You were saying, I want to deliver quality products, and I'm going to allow you to personalize them, which is 2 completely different things. And so like when you were thinking about positioning your company as this sort of branded promotional company, how did you come to that decision in the first place?
This is going to sound crazy, but since 2017, we've never had the conversation internally about positioning. It's crazy because we started in 2017 as a business opportunity with the drinkware. And while doing that, just trying to sell as many as we could year over year, we discovered a market fit for the beverage dispenser and not really realizing the audience just because people were asking for it. So we created that. 2 years later, we had people, our customers coming back and saying, hey, there's this, I can't find a good quality lunchbox on the market. You guys should create it, something I can put my logo on. So we, out of the gate, since 2017, we've been all product focused. And it's actually caused some problems within our marketing, our social media, is because, and we didn't realize what was happening, and we never really had these conversations up until the August of last year because our customers were telling us. So you can get out in front of it, or the market or your current customers are going to tell you, and that's unfortunately we had to learn the hard way.
Well, and you were doing, like I said, you're doing a lot of right things. You're listening to what customers are asking for, and you are developing products for them. That's hands down the best way to do it. Whether you have physical products, you have a SaaS product, understanding what the pain points are and what people say that they want versus like, I came up with this idea in my mind and it's the best thing and I'm going to force it on the market, right? So you're doing the right things. But it highlights a point that we say all the time around here is that a marketing decision is never just a marketing decision, right? And so if you think that positioning is just a marketing decision that will impact the way that you write copy, right? Or the way that you create logo, or the way that you create images for your website, that's not what positioning is, right? Positioning does help those things. However, positioning is how you sit in the market, right? This is how customers will categorize you in their mind. And however they choose to categorize you is how they're going to determine when they come to you and what they expect to buy from you, right? And so the positioning is not just a marketing thing. It should drive the products and services that you offer at your company, right? Because otherwise, if it doesn't, if it's just for your marketing copy, you're going to run into this problem every time where you're going to develop a bunch of products and you're going to develop a bunch of marketing material and marketing tactics, and they're not going to connect. You're going to have this chasm where why won't people stay with the product? We got all these people into the free trial and they won't stay in the product, or they kind of came to this thing, but they never signed, right? That you will see this breakdown in your funnel if there's this misalignment in positioning. Mm-hmm. And so it took an event, and this was a significant investment. I mean, you think of the cost of a speaker fee; those are pricey, right? And then a venue and getting everybody there, and the event and chairs and working and all, like that's tens of thousands of dollars. I don't know the exact amount, but that's a huge bet to not work. And it took that event for you to have this recognition of positioning. So now that you're a little removed, you're not extremely removed. So you don't have like years and years of saying, oh man, now this is how I've pivoted the business and how I've learned. Like, what are the sort of questions that you ask yourself after having this event, investing a lot of money and it not turning out? How has that changed the way you're approaching marketing?
I think it's two things. We've identified and discovered that we have a leadway and a pathway to do events. And not everything went wrong at the event. Since the event, we had 12 sponsors, potential sponsors come up to us and say, hey, man, you guys going to run this back in 2025? We're in. So we have 12 sponsors at the table. There's people telling us like, man, just run the event. It doesn't even matter how it ties into your brand. It's better than a Chamber of Commerce event. Like, just run it back and start charging for tickets. So that's one thing that we have to figure out. Are we going to run it back? How does it tie to the brand? Should it tie to the brand? From a product side, we're really, as the year closed, we're really in the first week of really diving into the data and which one of our product sets do we feel that we have a leadway into the marketplace? And that's right now where we are. That's what we're working on this week.
Well, man, this story, it shows a couple different things. It shows why you've been in business for 7 years, and you'll probably be in business for a lot longer, because you're willing to take a swing, right? You're willing to see something and say, man, this is a risk, right? Because that I've talked with other companies about this idea of hosting an event, and it terrifies them. The idea of like it, because it's just so far out of what people are comfortable with, right? And so you taking that swing is huge, and it paid off first. Then it didn't pay off, but it sounds like with some tweaks, it may pay off again in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so one. Keep that up. Keep doing that. That's what makes CEOs and entrepreneurs like you so great, is that you're willing to take these risks on, because if you're not willing to risk failure, you're usually not going to get the big reward, right? So congrats on continuing to take that failure, and thank you so much for choosing to come on here and talk with me about this, because I think there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this that are going to get a ton of value, and it's going to help them be better business leaders. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks again for listening to the My Biggest Marketing Mistake podcast. We hope you got a lot of valuable insights that you can apply to your business today. And we're not done. We've got a lot more great stories of failure coming your way. So be sure to follow us on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, or check us out on YouTube. And be sure to leave us a rating and review, because it helps a lot. Now, here's what's coming up on our next episode.
So you just go after everyone all the time. And especially when you have a product or a service that is what I'd call industry agnostic. Like anybody can use this. Like our opportunity is immense. This is where the problem begins, is you buy into that and it ends up biting you. Eventually. It works for a while, but it'll only take you so far.